It's now time for this month's broadcast of Learning Now TV.
Welcome everyone to the first programme of 2024. Can you believe it, Kate? Here we are in a new year, and boy, is it going to be exciting. Yeah, and quite right. So Kate, who's on the first programme of the new year?
Well, we are kicking off in style, Nigel. So we've got John Fletcher, recently of BP, who's moved to a really exciting role with the Learning and Performance Institute. John's a real expert on all things generative AI. I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with him. So that is going to be a must watch for everyone who's wondering, experimenting, trialing. We've got Joe Cook, who is a friend of Learning Now Television, recently taken up the role as editor at Training Journal. So very excited to hear from Joe. And Henry Stewart, long-time legend of the L&D game, talking about, I mean, he's always pushing boundaries, though. That's what I love about Henry. He's been around, seen it, done it, but always trying to do something different as well. And we've got regular contributors, Toby Kang, talking about employee experience in episode 3 of his series with us. That's whizzing by. And of course, Rob Clark returns with all the news in the L&D sector. But we've got some news ourselves, haven't we?
We have got some news, and that news is something that makes Kate and I smile a little bit. And that news is that the Colin Corder, the lifelong award really for special contribution to learning and development that has been around for 27 years or something, the Colin Corder Award is no longer the Colin Corder Award. It's the Colin Steed Award. So Colin, who works in the background for so much of the time and probably feels unappreciated by the world, finally gets a little bit of recognition. So from this year onwards, the Colin Steed Award for an outstanding contribution to the field. It's really fantastic. And also, just another little bit of news is that with Joe Cook taking on the Training Journal, we're going to have a partnership with Joe. So you'll see a lot more linkage between the people we interview and the journal, and what's in the journal and the people we interview. So I hope it will be better for you. The idea is to make it more joined up and to help you have much more of a grasp of what's really happening in learning and development. So I think a great show, Kate.
Exciting.
Please enjoy it. Very exciting.
Congratulations to Colin from all of us.
Yes, congratulations, Colin. It's terrific. Really terrific. Today, I actually think it's a privilege for me to be talking to John Fletcher. John is the Chief AI Strategist at the LPI. It's a job he's done since November last year. And before that, he worked at BP in their learning technology, head of their learning technology. And before that, he was at our good friend Capita. I've interviewed lots of people who were at Capita. I don't think I've interviewed anyone who is at Capita. So it's a great training ground. So you've come through big corporate to even bigger corporate, and now you're at the LPI. But tell us, what are you going to do as Chief AI Strategist at the LPI? What is your aspiration, your dream, your vision?
Firstly, thank you for having me. For me, my dream, I've been in learning development for 20 years. I've been a content developer all the way through to leading global teams, building out global complex organizations and supporting them from a learning and development perspective. And for me, this is the time I wanted to give back. I was very fortunate enough to get introduced to AI back into 2019, where I started to understand what it can do. But it was only at the latter part of 2022 when OpenAI launched ChatGPT that the reality and the capability of it was put into everybody's hands. And for me, moving into this role, I've got some very clear things I want to try and support our community with. Firstly, it's understanding AI, understanding how it's impacting our industry and our organization, and understanding how it impacts our employees. Because I don't think anybody is going to escape the somewhat of an impact of AI in their roles, in their flow of work, in what they're doing. And I think L&D are in such a unique position to enable and embed this technology into organizations by thinking slightly differently, by doing things in a slightly different way than we've done before. I'm also wanting to offer guidance, consultancy, understanding, knowledge around the world of AI. How's it practically being applied in organizations? When we talk about skills inference, what does that actually mean? When we talk about brainstorming, when you're looking at going through the content creation process and utilizing AI, what does that actually mean for you and your organizations? The other part is I'm wanting to help and guide people to utilize AI responsibly. So we've launched our responsible AI principles, which if you look at a lot of the large tech providers, they all have their AI principles. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they all have their guiding principles, which are for us are our North Star that we use to navigate the world of AI. And at any point we feel conflicted or not sure, I'll always revert back to the principles and goes, right, that's for me is what I need to make sure I'm always doing and delivering. So how do I bring that into it? And then finally, I've got a real alignment to LPI's motto, which is making learning work. For me, I just put the caveat on the end and say with AI.
Yeah, it's true. I think those guiding principles are really helpful. And for small companies, there's no way they can go away and delve deep and work on ethical implications. And if someone could do that for them, I think that's really important. But one of my perceptions about AI and L&D that slightly worries me is this inward looking. When I hear people say, well, this is going to allow us to cut the time of development of materials. And I think, is that the point? It's not really. You've got this massive workforce desperately needing help. And if L&D is all they're going to do is look after themselves, in a sense, they're missing the point. Do you accept that, or do you disagree with that?
No, I do. I completely agree with that. I think at the moment we are looking at it. Well, a lot of the use cases that we're seeing is all about driving efficiencies in what we're doing. If you think about from a supplier's perspective, a lot of them are incorporating a Gen AI solution, whether it's OpenAI's ChatGPT, into their solutions to drive efficiency, to drive a little bit of automation. And for me, that's a really good starting place because we ultimately do need to drive the benefit of AI. So from an organizational perspective, the organization can seize it. But AI is not a learning and development technology. It's an organizational technology. It's a societal technology. And for me, the focus that we have around AI is because we're in this industry, but we need to start thinking about things slightly differently. And I think you're absolutely right in saying that we need to be very mindful to stop, to take a step back and to look at the wider picture of it all. And yes, we obviously can drive efficiencies with ourselves, but I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years' time that a lot of the activities that we're doing at the moment, utilizing different processes and different activities in our day-to-day roles, will be moved across into some type of automation or AI, or fundamentally won't be there because of the wider impacts of AI within the organizational setting. And so for me, it gives us the opportunity to open that door, open the vision and go, well, actually, who do we need to go and partner with in our organizations? Who are seen as the individuals out there? And how do we go and embed it? And I do talk about this quite a lot. AI gives us the ability to finally move out of the shadow of HR. And I think a lot of the HR world is going to be automated and driven a lot quicker from an AI perspective. But the reality is, if you think about Microsoft Copilot, that's going to be an organizational technology that's being infused in every single Microsoft product. And if you're an organization that uses it, all of a sudden you're going to need to know how to use it. You're going to need to think about, okay, well, how do I ask the right questions in order to get the right responses? How do I know when something is benefiting me as a human and not trying to take over the task that I'm doing? And that whole activity is going to need to be supported by L&D. That's been our jobs for the last 20, 30 years. So I really do think it's an opportunity that gives us to broaden our vision, broaden our horizon within the organization and go, okay, well, normally I'd have gone to HR to have a conversation about this, but now I'm going to go and speak with the IT director, or I'm going to go and speak with the data science team, or I'm going to go and speak with the data team to understand what they're doing and how they're doing things.
Because it's a partnership. I think it'd be crazy to say, oh, L&D could do the whole thing. But what worries me is that L&D will be able to do nothing. And if it's left to IT and data, opportunities will be missed. That's my view. And what was very interesting, you probably saw the research recently where MIT worked with, I think, McKinsey, and just giving them the AI tools, what they found was that productivity went up 20% in some instances, but in other instances, it was actually counterproductive. It did damage to workforce productivity. So the key is someone has to be there to guide the organization and say, this is basically the options, this is what you do, but be wary, be on top of it, and don't just imagine that it will solve every single problem in the organization at a stroke, because it won't.
You're absolutely right, it won't. And it has the power to fundamentally change how an organization operates and works, but we are a long, long way off there. We still can't get some of the basics right around AI. We still can't deal with the bias situations that you see or the hallucinations of incorrect information in there. So until that is really locked in and really tight, I don't think that it's going to drive the productivity gains that organizations are going to want to see initially. There will be productivity gains, absolutely, but not the 60, 70, 80% that some reports have been spouting.
Yes. Are you also going to help organizations? Because I get blogs, and every day they're launching new products, and a lot of them are just smoke and mirrors. They're basically ChatGPT license put on a really silly interface and then say that's £30 a month or £400 a year. And sadly, some organizations are falling for that. They're paying a lot of money for very little they couldn't get by going directly into ChatGPT. Do you see that's part of your role, that intelligence gathering and just making people a bit more canny in a crazy gold rush kind of market?
Absolutely, and so much so that very soon we're actually launching something called the AI Collective. And the AI Collective, I brought data scientists, I brought an ethics fellow together. I'm bringing in SMEs from the wider L&D industry who all have a focus on AI, so we can come together and actually go, what does this need to look like, and how do we navigate this world? Because before too long, you're going to have suppliers and providers out there saying, oh, we're the next generation of AI. And like you said, they've just plugged ChatGPT into the back of it. And it's like, no. I think at the moment we're in a utilization phase where there's so many people out there interacting with a consumer-focused product that we understand, and we're bringing it into our own flow of work. Not the organization's not doing that. It's us as individuals saying, well, how can I do this, and playing about with. And what I'm starting to probably see is the migration of that technology being put into the systems, because everybody's using that technology in a consumer world, and all the suppliers are going, great, I'll go plug that into mine and they'll understand what it is. But that's not the case because of the way that the architecture of that specific solution sits. So absolutely, we want to, and I'm passionate about making sure that we are driving together through this journey, and it's being led by the internals. It's being led by the L&D functions and the teams, not being led by suppliers, which is predominantly where I see the innovation of L&D over the last 10 years have come from. They've been supplier driven. You think about LMSs going to LXPs or next gen learning systems and LXPs. It's been driven by suppliers. It's not been driven by a need within the organization. We've then had to retrospectively try to fit that solution into our organization, where I think with AI, we need to bring a very different approach to it and say, let's just slow down a second. Let's work out what we need as an organization, what our employees need, and then how do we drive that forward together. And that's going to be through use cases, through research, with speaking with different people, with gathering a wide range of views from various knowledgeable people. And so much so that one of the first things I did is I went and got some mentors who aren't in L&D. They're the chief data scientist and an ML DevOps engineer, because they're the ones who understand the technology, and it's my job to interpret what the technology is doing to be able to say, okay, this is how it's going to impact and affect our industry and our roles and our jobs.
100%. I think that's absolutely wise words. Plus, of course, people should read your guidelines, because I think they're very, very helpful framing. So let's take people are listening to this. Someone's in a small to medium-sized company, and they're thinking, where do I start?
Really, really great question. Before the end of 2014, I'm sure individuals were looking at their budgets and looking at thinking, okay, I need to put some money aside to go and play about or do something with AI, but not knowing really what to do. For me, it's really important that we have the foundations in place. And that's not needing us to go and select an AI provider or an AI solution out there. It's about looking internally and going, okay, I know AI is built off of data. I know data is extremely important. How good is my data? What type of quality and quantity is my data? When I download a CSV file out of the back of my learning system, or my couple of learning systems, or your 80 learning systems, depending on the size of your organization, you might have different data parameters in there. So one might say pass and one might say completed. They mean exactly the same thing, but if you then try and utilize that within a model, there could potentially be some hallucinations or some conflict between that data. So for me, looking internally and going, okay, from a data perspective, where are we? Looking at it from a skill set of my team and who's available to support in the delivery of this. AI requires time to understand and to understand how to utilize it, how to use it in your organization. I've been researching it for 3 years. I'm still not there. I'm still learning things daily. I'm still reading things daily and going, that just throws out that whole concept that I had, a few weeks ago, because of the evolution of it. So we need to make sure that we're supporting and enabling our internal L&D function, our internal L&D teams, to go out and explore and give them time to understand and train them up on the relevant skill sets. And so it's not just about needing to go out and find an AI solution and bring it in. Look at what you've got internally. Look at around your data. Look at around your internal team skills and capabilities. Look at your strategy. How's that aligned? Also look in the wider business. Is there an AI strategy, or is there a strategy which has AI elements to it? Who's leading that? Go and have the conversation with them. Understand what they're doing. Go have a conversation with your IT department or your data teams to say, well, what are you guys doing around AI this year? You also need to think about the ethical considerations. So go and speak with the policyholders in the organization and say, how are you adapting your policies for AI? And just go and absorb all of the information you've got from your organization so you start to build a picture out. And then it gives you a solid foundation. If you do have a little bit of money put away to support some innovation or strategic projects, you have two options, I think. One is to go and look at your existing supplier base and understand what they're doing with AI and saying, okay, I see you're doing some content creation solutions. It'd be really interesting to understand what you're doing and getting involved and how it's going to drive. Or if there's a specific need or challenge that you've got, go and look at a specific AI supplier. And as you start that exploration and navigation, there's a load of things you need to consider. Now, something which we've done is I identified that quite early on. So we've actually recently launched our AI readiness workshop, which really focuses on, okay, and answering that question, where do I start and what do I need to do? And it really focuses on giving practical application and practical steps that you can take back in your organization to get yourself ready and prepared for when you do either bring in an AI solution or you go and explore the world of AI. And yeah, I would advise having a look at that if somebody is really stuck and not sure what to do. And also, go and use our collective community. We've got some great people out there with some phenomenal knowledge, and just see what they're talking about online. And I'm sure that you'll get nuggets of information that will help you.
So, John, it's been an absolute pleasure and delight talking to you. Thank you for your time. And also just thank you for your really measured and balanced words of wisdom. Very, very important and very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Upskill and inform your learners with Mind Tools for Business. Empower your people to thrive at work and help them step up and meet everyday workplace challenges with confidence. Our toolkit provides unlimited access to thousands of quality assured resources, all in one place. It's easy to use and on demand, anytime, anywhere. Experience stress-free onboarding with dedicated client partner support. And get access to our library of industry insight and expert analysis. Perform, manage, lead with Mind Tools for Business. Visit mindtoolsbusiness.com to find out more.
And our regular slot for learning news, L&D news, views, all the scandals, takeovers, and everything else, you should come to listen to Rob Clark. And Rob does a great job in presenting snippets of what's going on around the industry. Unmissable.
HR and learning providers are rapidly integrating AI, but customers are slow to embrace it. Being tech savvy used to be a sought after skill. Not anymore. We now need to be much more than this. A new phrase, digital intelligence, has entered the L&D lexicon. Fosway's annual report into cloud HR is out. It shows providers are rapidly integrating AI, yet corporate customers are slow to embrace it.
I guess the majority of the use cases in terms of their disruptive potential up until 2022, I guess, were centered around skills, automation, efficiency, those kind of themes. 2/3 of European enterprise organizations have already adopted AI into some form or shape into one area of their HR solution. And half of them have found this to be quite a challenge. There are still a lot of concerns around fairness and explainability, and this has caused quite a few organizations actually to delay implementing AI in order to crystallize how they assess fairness, how they assess bias. Nevertheless, more than 2/3 of EMEA enterprises are planning to expand AI in HR, and the strongest drivers for adoption are efficiency, employee and HR productivity, improving and personalizing the employee experience, the people experience. The vendors really, like you say, have invested quite significantly or are investing quite significantly. So probably 12 months down the road, you will have your co-pilots, you will have your content generation for learning, you will have content generation for your job ads, you will have interview scheduling and automation. You have to think about generative AI, I guess, together with automation.
Kineo, one of our best known workplace learning brands, has explored how its customers feel about AI.
Lots of people very keen on AI, but obviously some people are concerned about it, particularly when it comes to things like, are they going to be replaced in a livelihood sense of things? 64% of the people we surveyed are eager to learn more about it. But I think generally a lot of companies don't have a broad policy on AI. It seems to be more individuals using it for their own piece of work, whether it's making a draft or something. In fact, half the people we asked are mainly using it for that purpose, to create early drafts of things. They are keen to be using it, but how they are going to use it and what the company thinks about their use is a bit more grey.
Mind Tools for Business has published the final instalment of its annual benchmark report. It looks at L&D's role in helping businesses to digitally transform and points to L&D developing its own digital intelligence capability as a priority.
The data this year, it points to one very important capability for L&D teams, and that's digital intelligence. In the report, we spend quite a lot of time exploring this capability and its importance for learning. And I think this is how L&D teams can really help their businesses to digitally transform the most. Even in just sort of the last 12 months, for example, the pace in which things have changed, it is quite staggering when we consider advances in AI, for example. And the tools available to organizations today, they are powerful if used correctly, but actually we're all feeling a little bit overwhelmed about, what do we do? What do we use? And it's quite difficult sometimes to keep up. I'd actually heard the term digital intelligence being used by a few industry experts recently, and they define it as this applying knowledge and skills in order to interact with technology in meaningful ways, which is quite distinct from just being a proficient user of technology, or tech savvy, as we've kind of called them in the past. In the report, we've predicted that digital intelligence will become probably an essential capability for L&D professionals, and perhaps even sooner than we realise. And I certainly strongly stand by that.
Learning Pool has acquired OnScreen, a digital adoption platform. It provides tutorials, contextual help and automated workflows to help employees adopt new digital applications and processes. But what's a digital adoption platform, and what's the difference with performance support systems? Let's take a closer look at this market. Most employees say they rarely fully adopt new software introduced by their employers. The aim of a digital adoption platform is to change this. So what's a digital adoption platform? Well, many refer to them as performance support systems, and this term is more familiar here in L&D. Market analyst Gartner rebranded this category as digital adoption in 2019, defining a market of apps, tools and solutions to help employees with new systems. If there's still a difference between the two, then DAPs are typically more comprehensive, tracking user progress and giving feedback. Performance support tools are typically more about giving just-in-time support with tutorials, chatbots and FAQs right at the moment of need. Who's in the market? First, there are the enterprise systems vendors themselves, Oracle, SAP and so on. They have their own digital adoption solutions. Second, specialist DAP vendors. Some of the biggest are Whatfix, WalkMe, Userlane and TTS. And the workplace learning vendors are getting into this category, driven by the sea change to direct more learning more closely at performance. Omniplex Learning made a similar acquisition and now has its Guide digital adoption product. GP Strategies is another L&D brand with specialist adoption solutions. And now Learning Pool is the latest of the workplace learning vendors to enter this market. And that's the first Learning News Bulletin of 2024. As always, full features with the people I spoke to where we explore the news in more detail are on the website, along with more on each of the news updates you've seen ticketed on the screen. Next month we'll have the results of the Global Sentiment Survey. Until then, thanks for watching. Back to Kate and Nigel.
I think it's been a year since I last talked to Henry Stewart from Happy Company. I may be wrong, but a year ago, I welcomed him back into Learning Now TV as a sponsor and doing exactly the same this year. Henry is the longest serving, is that the word? The longest and most dedicated supporter of Learning Now TV, and we are very, very grateful to him. But over the time that Henry has sponsored Learning Now TV, his organization has changed. It's changed its name, it's changed its focus, but it hasn't changed its heart. It's exactly the same organization in spirit that it was, but it's adapted to times, needs, markets, and opportunities. And it is a pioneer of the 4-day week, and I'm going to ask for a little update on that. And it's been a pioneer of trying to help organizations be happier, nicer, friendlier places, because there's lots of evidence that nicer, happier, friendlier organizations are more productive and profitable. So, Henry, welcome. It's again a huge pleasure to talk to you. Henry, just tell me about life. How is Happy doing? What's the news? How are your apprenticeships doing? How is the 4-day week doing?
Oh, that's a lot to cover. So first of all, the 4-day week. The key to the 4-day week is 100, 80, 100, that you get 100% of the salary for 80% of the time, as long as you're 100% as productive. And we did the UK pilot, which involved 61 companies. And I think over 95% of them have continued because they were 100% as productive, and we were 100% as productive. Our key metrics were customer satisfaction and whether we did as well as we did before. And customer satisfaction has gone up, and we had a 15% increase last year, 10% this year, with no increase in staff. So it's clearly we're doing more, in fact, than we did before.
Yes. That's really impressive. And I think what you said was, it's not that the place closes on a Friday. People take different days off during the week, don't they? So you're always staffed.
They do indeed. Here's the rota. Here's the rota. Yes. So some of them.
What is the red? The red is days off.
Days off. Some of them are off on Mondays, some on Fridays, some on Wednesdays. But everybody goes in on a Tuesday.
What about apprenticeships? You were breaking new ground when you had your leadership apprenticeship.
Absolutely, it's what I like to call the Happy MBA, and that that has that's been going for 2 years. We've had 5 of them altogether, and we'll be having more. And it really has transformed organisations. It absolutely has, because in that case the CEO comes on board. And they're able, for a small or medium-sized charity or social enterprise or public sector organisation, they're able to have real change in their organisation.
Yes. And what I liked was that the whole philosophy was not, this is abstract learning. This is learning deeply embedded in work, deeply embedded. So it's all about all of the work that you do is involved. You go back to your organisation and take the learning and apply the learning.
Absolutely.
Correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So that you actually put it into practice. So if you teach coaching, you'll go and coach, and then you'll then you'll put it in an assignment and ensure that you actually do what you say you do.
I just like the spirit of it, and I think that's the direction of travel. I meet a lot of people running very, very expensive leadership programs around the world, and that is the direction of travel. They're going from kind of abstract, academic, out of context, vanilla leadership to in context, focused on the organization, working on organizational problems. It's the only way to go, I think, to deal with any impact.
Absolutely. So that Happy MBA lasts over 2 years, and people, as I say, they really transform their organization.
Wonderful. Excellent. And who validates it? Do they get a qualification, CMI or something like that?
ILM.
Yeah. Right. Excellent. We reviewed one of their recent reports on Learning Now TV, which was
did you?
A good report. Yes. Yeah, interesting report. So what else is new? Tell me about how you're thinking.
Let me tell you about liberating structures. Are you ever at a meeting or an event where 1 or 2 people dominate? Yeah.
Indeed.
It's called the hippo effect. Do you know the hippo effect?
What, the eyes out the water?
Not the eyes out the water. No, it's not. I'm not talking about swamp-based African animals. It's the highest paid person's opinion.
Okay.
Is normally the person who has the most credence, but actually they're normally the furthest person from the front line. Google did an interesting study. Do you know about their project Aristotle?
No, tell me about Aristotle.
Okay, so this is what brought Amy Edmondson with psychological safety to life, because they were looking at what worked for teams. And what they found was it was a matter of psychological safety, but it was also a matter of giving people an equal voice. Okay, so liberating structures are ways to give people an equal voice. Shall I give you an example of one?
Yes, please. Yeah, give us a really nice example.
Yeah, there's 33 structures altogether. One of them is 1, 2, 4 all. In that case, whatever topic there is, whatever item there is, you have 1 minute of private reflection, then 2 minutes in pairs, 4 minutes in fours, and then you all come back together. And of course, in that case, everybody gets to have a voice. Everybody gets to talk. Everybody gets to speak in their sessions. And so we and it's only, that's only 7 minutes, right? So it's very, you might have 1 or 2 people talking for 7 minutes at, in some meetings. Another example is TRIZ. In TRIZ, what happens is you do the reverse of what people want. So let's say you want to create a happy workplace. You look at how would you create a truly despicable workplace where nobody got anything done. Okay. And you basically have one round where you look at how you create that truly terrible workplace. Then the second round, you look at which of those are we actually doing. And then in the third round, you look at how you can stop doing it. So, for instance, we did this at Happy. We looked at how you might bankrupt Happy, and we looked at, and one of the ideas was not contact the customer enough. So we decided to contact the customer more. And it's a great thing to do on projects or on long-term training programs. You could look at what would make this project absolutely fail. But of course, it's about getting 4 people together in each of the groups so that everybody still gets that equal voice.
I also think that if you can create that environment where people feel they have a voice, then they naturally will speak up more regularly, and it will affect everything. It won't just affect meetings. And that changes the culture, essentially. It's a cultural change endeavor. Even though it's a way of managing meetings better, the impact spreads wider because people who sit there mute, and that translates. So they don't say what they believe, don't have an opinion. Whereas you're in some ways you're encouraging people to have an opinion, to take a point of view.
Absolutely, absolutely.
With the base on the basis that they'll be listened to. So we have TRIS, and we have 1, 2, 4 and all. And many more.
31 other structures, and we cover those in our immersion workshop. We've got online immersion workshops. We've got live immersion workshops where we cover over a full day probably 8 structures. Over a half day we cover probably 4 or so. And the people that have gone on those courses, they've just transformed the way that they work in their learning.
I've done work with organizations on how you can improve meetings, and some of those ideas pop out of that. But again, if they take them away, because the way we've organized things is so awful and archaic and out of habit, of custom and practice, just one thing can completely transform them. There alone 31 things.
Absolutely.
This is I would argue that what you're talking about is kind of organizational transformation, not just transforming voices and meetings. And that's really important. You'd agree?
Yes, absolutely. Because we did a lot of this with the NHS. During the pandemic, we decided to give these courses free for the NHS. And because, at the time, there was the only things they could have finance for was COVID. So we decided to give them it free. And there's an awful lot of organisations, ELFT, East London Foundation Trust, the Midlands Partnership, all sorts of things like that, where they've actually made it a real thing for the whole trust.
Wow, that's great. And it continues, I hope, to this day. I'm sure that
absolutely.
Once you start this, it's very difficult to go back. I would think. Yes, is that true? People won't let you. People would scream. No,
that's right. No. Yes, absolutely.
Give us back our organisation.
Indeed,
which is fantastic. So your mission to liberate organisations continues apace, Henry. I'm really delighted by that.
Absolutely.
So welcome back to a new year of LNTV sponsorship, but welcome back to a new year of transformation and energy and positivity. It's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Next up, Toby Kang continues his series with us, looking at employee experience. This is the third episode already. It really feels like that's going by fast. If you've missed the first two, you can go back to the website and have a look at those. Highly recommend them. And in this month's episode, he's looking at how you judge whether the employer and the employee are a good fit. As somebody who sort of started a new job relatively recently, I can really relate to this and the importance of that. Luckily, in my case, it's going well, but it's not always true. So listen and learn.
Hello, it's Toby again, here to talk about the third thing, or the second stage of the 5 Fs, but the third video in the series, and that's talking about fit. So last time we talked about attracting, fascinating an audience to want to join an organization. The next stage, often typically called recruitment, is more about fit than recruitment, and very intentionally now starting to use different language than what we've typically used in HR and learning and development, because it's really important to change the language to kind of change what we're doing. If we stick with the same language, we're probably not going to affect that much change. So fit is a really important part of the process, because I'm sure everybody watching today has had that really awful interview process where communication hasn't been great. You've had to go through so many stages of the interview process. And even when you get offered the job, you're kind of and ah about whether you want to take it or not. So here, there's a real opportunity to design something that amazes potential employees, but also appreciate that it's a two-way conversation. So the typical recruitment journey is more of an employer saying, hey, employee, potential employee, you need to prove yourself that you are good enough for us. And no one really wants to stand for that anymore. It is about a two-way conversation about finding that correct fit between the two parties. And when you think like that, the process of an interview becomes completely different, or an application becomes completely different, because it has to really focus on trying to create a symbiotic relationship between these two parties to be most effective when that employee comes into the workplace. So at that moment, you kind of start have to measuring things a little bit differently, because what you can't do is just say, okay, it's all about conversion. And recruitment teams I've worked with in the past were targeted on how many people applied and then how many they converted. That kind of drives the wrong behavior, because what you're not doing is trying to find the right fit. You're actually just trying to affect the number. Now, I'm not saying don't measure it, but you've got to find different ways to measure the reasons why people do or don't join your organization. And having worked in sales a couple of times in my life, I've been told by one of the commercial directors I work for, a yes and a no are equally good answers, because it gives you a definitive result. Now, we don't want the maybes, we don't want the ambiguity, we want it to be a yes or no, and we want to be a yes or no for the right reasons. Appreciating that there is a right reason for a no on both sides as well. But the key here is that has to be talked about and communicated in an open, honest way. If you kind of just leave it to one side and go, well, if it's a no, we're not going to engage with them, we're not going to respond, or actually we'll just say it's thanks but no thanks and no opportunity for feedback. If you really care about the employee experience and how your company is perceived, to attract future talent beyond this one interview process that you may be going through, then you've got to really appreciate how you and your organization are perceived, whatever the result of the finding the right fit process. So there is a load of great automation out there that has kind of fed its way into the recruitment industry. Some of it great, some of it not so great. And there's loads of great people out there that are talking about recruitment as being a more human-centric thing. And I couldn't agree more. And that's where you have this opportunity to kind of change that paradigm and make it about fit between the two parties rather than about recruitment. And that also stems into who does that person talk to as they're finding the right fit, because they might probably just talk to their own line manager, but being able to talk to other people in the organization, maybe people that are going to be in their team, they're going to work with, but also other people, providing that opportunity. Most organizations I've worked with, it's the employee that drives the opportunity to have those conversations. It's not offered as standard. I know it takes time and I know it takes effort, but it's a really crucial part to understanding on, again, both parties, whether there's fit. There is a kind of a little bit of a watch out or a red flag here, because again, organizations I've worked with, when they said, oh, go and talk to so-and-so in this team and they'll tell you how great it is to work here. And then that person is primed to essentially sell the organization to that person. I'm not talking about that level of conversation, because that does nothing more than maybe build up a reality that doesn't exist. So the thing I will leave you with in terms of the story, I would implore you to go and watch the American Office when they are trying to find Michael Scott's replacement. They interview loads of different candidates. And if you want to have a look at the interview experience there, there's quite some funny ones. But there is one where there is a chap who's being interviewed, and essentially he feels quite protective over the IP that he's going to bring to the organization, and therefore kind of withholds a lot of the answers from the interview. Now, I'm not saying let's shift the balance of fit all that way, but he ends up giving, in the interview, he says he's got a 4-point plan, and he gives them part two of that 4-point plan, just so they get a flavor of it, because he's so frightened of giving them their IP. And I think there's loads of evidence out there where you're asked to present ideas and information, and actually that doesn't go anywhere. So again, it can't feel like this giving of your soul and your information to a potential employer. It has to be that two-way thing. So my recommendation for this week is to go and watch that episode of the American Office, because it is extremely pertinent to what we've just talked about.
Are you productive, or are you just busy? At Happy, we run a productivity blitz course. It runs for a whole week, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, with 10 top tips. Those who came on the course found they gained 38 minutes in productivity each day. So let us help you be more productive.
I'm so delighted to connect again with Joe Cook. Joe's been a kind of regular on Learning Now TV over the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years. I've certainly interviewed her more than once about various aspects of her life, particularly the focusing on live online facilitation, of which she is a bit of an expert, I have to say. But that is not what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to talk about today is her new role. Joe is now editor of the Training Journal, and I'm very pleased she's got that new role. So congratulations, Joe. Well done. You've snagged something iconic in the firmament, and I'm delighted that you've got that. So just tell us, what do you want to achieve as the brand new editor of the Training Journal? TJ, as everyone calls it.
Yes, well, brand new is absolutely right. I think I'm less than 6 weeks in, which is a little bit scary, but getting slightly comfortable, which is nice. A big aim for me is to get to TJ's 60th birthday, which is next year. So that would be an amazing milestone to get to. Obviously, it's about serving an audience whose work is ever changing. Obviously, we've got a change in technology. You know, people may have heard of AI last year, for example, but also people needs. You know, there's all sorts of changes in the world going on. And fundamentally, all the work I do is to help people with their jobs. And that's exactly the same with TJ as well.
Yes, I think that's probably right. And how are you going to do that? What are your ideas? I don't want to spoil any secrets that are brewing, but what is your vision for the way TJ is going to go under the editorship of Joe Cook and through to the 60th anniversary? And we will definitely be there with you to celebrate that. That's a fantastic achievement. 60 years is big for any kind of journal, let alone a learning and development journal.
Well, there's a few things coming, and I've always got lots of ideas and welcome lots of ideas as well. So anybody's welcome to pop me a message with an idea to put it into the mix. By the time this is coming out, I should have our relaunched podcast out, which I'm really excited about. And a little teaser is out about that already. And there's things like I want to be publishing content by role, so that at some point you go to the website and you click on, well, actually, I'm really new to L&D. What can I pick up that's a little bit more written for me? Or for somebody else who might be a contractor or freelancer, well, what's relevant to their role? So there's some things like that I want to do. But also there's some things around getting more voices and more diversity into TJ, getting all sorts of different journeys and experiences that other people can learn from, whether that's writing or a podcast or other things that might come along a little bit later on. But also we have a little something to announce today as well, don't we?
We do, Joe. Go ahead and announce it, because I think it's very important.
Thank you. Well, between you, me, and the absolutely fabulous Colin at LNTV, we've decided to have a content agreement between us. So I'm going to be publishing some of the absolute cream of the videos and the interviews that have been on LNTV, and I'm going to be putting those on to TJ. And hopefully what I'll be doing is sharing some of the contributors and their stories and their experience with the LNTV viewers as well. It's very exciting, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of mutual enrichment. In fact, we could have a whole episode which is interviews with Joe Cook. Now, there's an issue all on its own.
People would have an issue with that, Nigel. You're right.
But there is rich content that deserves to be repurposed. So I actually love the idea of seeing some of the interviews in print and seeing some of your print interviews on video. And that helps us both in a very good way. It also, I think, helps the industry. It helps learning development professionals access resources so they can come in through TJ and end up with us, come in through Learning Now TV and end up with Training Journal. And that's all to the good. So how do you think you can help as we go through this enormous change? How are you going to help learning and development professionals navigate this increasingly rough sea that they're setting out across?
Yes, with the good ship TJ, absolutely. So I think content that we have is there to help people with their thinking and with their own skills development as well. And we've got discussion on our social media channels, or whichever one you want to choose, and a LinkedIn group. And that can be for discussion and working with like-minded individuals and being challenged by others as well. And what do different people bring to a conversation that we can learn from? But also I want to encourage people to share their journey or their story or their experiences in writing for the podcast or whatever it might be. Because not only is that a really good profile builder for individuals and for companies, actually when they reflect on things themselves, that's a really good practice to be able to do that. And then, of course, we come back to it helps others. So that's kind of really kind of the story of TJ for the last nearly 60 years. And I want to continue that as well.
Yes, and I hope that you'll be able to give glimpses of the emerging future so that you can grab hold of glimmers of what might be and share that in TJ so that people who are maybe quite a long way back can at least see the way things might emerge, and therefore they can prepare themselves and prepare their organization. I think that would be extremely helpful because there's not really any other place for that. I can't think of any other institution / journal / website that is trying to help the profession move forward. And it would be great, I think, if you took that on as your role. So to share, to network, and to show glimpses of what people need to do to prepare themselves as they move forward.
And that's what Debbie Carter in the last 22 years have been working in different roles at TJ. Yeah. And that's what she really focused on. She wanted things to be really practical. And so that people could read something, watch something, listen to something, and go away and do something with it. And so we do need a variety. We need, glimmers of the future. We need what to do now. We need breadth. We need depth. We need all different things for different people in different roles and different stages of their career. But I hope to be able to offer at least a sprinkle across all of those. And we'll see what glitter I can come up with.
Joe, you will come up with glitter aplenty, I think. I hope your magic dust sprinkles all over Training Journal. And that's not to underplay the fantastic role that Debbie has had over the last years. But, it's a new direction, a new philosophy and approach. And I really wish you the very best. We'll all look forward to seeing what you do as the months move on, as we get to that 60th anniversary. And I'm sure you'll be there for that. Guaranteed.
Thank you very much.
That was a really excellent show, Kate. A really excellent show. And I just want to highlight for a second the work of John Fletcher, the LPI's AI expert. And I think he's going to deliver great support and assistance to the community. That his guidelines, which he's put out already, are very helpful. But he's got a real grasp of what's going on, and he's keeping a great eye on everything. So good luck, good appointment. And I think John is a real enthusiast, and he will do a fantastic job.
Yeah,
do you agree?
Because he's walked a mile in the L&D practitioner's shoes, and more than a mile, and so he understands the ins and outs of fighting the good fight on the front line every day, and being asked for things from the business and having to respond to inquiries. So those sort of opportunities to apply generative AI, which is where we are now, isn't it? It's looking at the guidelines, it's understanding how to make it sort of trustworthy and ethical, and figuring out what that governance looks like. But it's also that understanding where and how we can practically apply it. And I think sitting with the LPI is really great, because I think, vendors can benefit from that. And I've talked a lot about sort of standards around different aspects of L&D, but Gen AI is possibly one area where we'll need sort of a new set of standards. And also then working with end users and practitioners and leaders within organisations. So I think it's a great role, and he's a great man for the job.
It's true. It's in everyone's interest to move this forward rapidly and to have a kind of bit of wise counsel, so that people are not making silly mistakes or wasting a lot of money doing things that are going to lead nowhere. So it's really excellent. Kate, any conferences, events that you can share with us?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here at the moment planning, got my calendar out, old school, pen and paper first, and lots of things coming up. So on the 30th and 31st of January, there's the World of Learning Summit at Olympia in London. Feels like it's coming up fast. 22nd of February is the Learning Awards from the LPI. So with the inaugural Colin Steed Award, which we mentioned earlier, very exciting.
That's when it's going to be presented.
And then there's some guy called Nigel Payne doing a series of webinars that sound vaguely interesting. So I think on the 7th of March, there's something around embracing external insights to drive change. 23rd of April, adopting healthy habits, how to fail in order to learn and how to ask for help. I definitely need to go to that one. And then on the 17th and 18th of April, which is again a little bit earlier this year, it's the main Learning Technologies event in London. So yeah, get your travel plans sorted out.
When are we meeting on January 23rd? When are we? 29th of February, very last day of February, we're coming back together again.
It's Olympia. So we should do something special, Nigel. One every 4 years.
We should.
Special.
We should. What are we going to do?
The answer's on a postcard.
Or even an email. Thank you.
Bye for now.